So, people are talking about the big game, and you launched Super Soul Parties and have gotten quite a bit of attention about the concept. So first of all, for people maybe who have never heard of that, tell us what it is.
Thanks for asking. Yeah, Super Soul Party is a safe space where it's sort of hidden behind this Super Bowl party where people are getting together on this non-official holiday in the US to get together with family and friends. And what the Super Soul Party provides is, yes, on the outside looking in, it looks like a Super Bowl party. It looks there's wings and there's food and there's the game being played. But if you look a little deeper, you start seeing that the people who are part of the Super Soul Party are people who are experiencing homelessness and people who aren't. What's really fascinating is really cool is that when you come, you can't really tell who's who. We're just a bunch of humans coming together, celebrating and having a good time. Beyond just the food and the drinks and the game is also barbers and makeup artists, and there's clothing and bags of dignity, which has essentials that people need. And Hanes have been an incredible sponsor in that regard, coming with warm clothing and whatnot. And there's also mental health counselors and resources to help people get back on their feet. So during this time in which people are getting together to celebrate, life, community, and sports, what I found to be as it was a dead time or a quiet time where people were not necessarily helping those who needed it most, who may have felt the most alone during this time. And so it just connected. Super Soul Party was this idea that came together to, help those who need it most during a time where people are connecting, where they may feel more lonely.
And you've been doing this now since 2017, right? And is that correct? And all over the country.
Yeah. Yeah, it's grown every single year. It's been first year was in New York City, then New York and LA, and it's grown to now multiple cities throughout the US. People have been hearing about it through different social medias. People like yourself who highlight such stories, so thank you for that. And a big highlight for me and my grandmother was actually when Reader's Digest did a story on Super Soul Party last season, and so yeah, it's been people are, hey, how do I get involved? How could I bring this Super Soul Party to my community so I could, spread some kindness, spread some love, spread some community where I'm at. And so it's been just a real joy. And that's always been the goal. The goal is to be in every state in America, to be able to, when people associate Super Bowl, it's like, okay, how do I get involved with my local Super Soul Party to make people feel more seen and heard?
And you mentioned the dignity bag, and I think the word dignity is just such a powerful part of what you do. And what you're doing isn't, I mean, it's simple, not easy, but simple in that you can do it anywhere and it doesn't take a huge investment. Talk about how people who might want to get involved next year or how they want to support it between Super Bowls, what can they do?
Yeah, they could check out Super Soul Party and .org, and they could go ahead and support in that way, whether it's through finances or find out ways that they can volunteer in their local city. And like you mentioned, I mean, the barrier of entry is so low, and you don't have to wait to next Super Bowl to spread some kindness and some cheer, whether it's walking down the street and seeing someone who may need a simple hi and a smile, getting down on their level, really making some eye contact, maybe buying a sandwich, dropping it off and where they're at. And that really makes the biggest difference. You may be saving literally a life just through that meal, but also you'll find in the very moment that you in it or walk away how it makes you feel. And honestly, there's a lot of incredible, scientifically endorphins that take place when we do kindness. It feels good. It's a feel good drug when we go ahead and we just spread some kindness. So do yourself a favor if you're feeling down and want to get out of your own muck or head or pattern. It's really stepping out of oneself. I found in my own life to just like walk down the street, help somebody out. It really changes my day.
And I think for a lot of folks, they see homelessness around them and it almost becomes invisible, right? The people you walk by and they kind of blend in almost to the walls or into the buildings they're in front of. And I think folks don't know oftentimes, well, how can I help? What do I, and then they go to these like stereotype places. They're an addict. They'll waste the money on alcohol. What do
Mm-hmm.
I do? So what advice do you have for people who, tomorrow or a week from now or a month from now are going to walk by someone who's experiencing homelessness and they feel like, oh, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, there is a certain level of disassociation that we do with people who, who are experiencing homelessness, and there's a lot of fear-based mentality around that. they're crazy, they're the mental health issues. I mean, like you mentioned, addiction is, and these are old. I mean, addiction is a big part of the homeless community, and also it's also a medicine that, though it's unhealthy, they're using because there's so much pain. And I know for myself, I know what it means to be in pain. I know what it means like to be in a world and a room filled with people and feel lonely. So what I try to do in those moments is to get a little compassion and just tap into those human uh emotions that I believe we feel and have felt at some point. And we all have our ways that we mitigate that pain, whether it's healthy or not. So it's just really humanizing because the person in front of us, because they are human. And I try to just put myself in their shoes, and I'm only a few short, steps away from making some bad decisions that could end up there too. Like thank God I have a family and a privilege that I've grown up in a certain way. But and even within that, a couple of wrong decisions, and I could end up in a really deep bad place. So, being fortunate, feeling gratitude, and sharing what I can, whether it's just a kind word in the moment, or whether it's a couple of bucks to get a sandwich or a drink. There's so many different ways, or volunteering at a local soup kitchen or shelter. Just by stepping into that and really getting to know someone's story, that's what sold me the first year. When I did Super Soul Party, and inviting these 6 men off the street, I was really getting to know these men. And one of them was incarcerated. He was in jail. He did his time, and he was willing to make a change and was trying to, and he was trying back on his feet. And I mean, who doesn't deserve a second chance? I believe in that. And so once I humanized and once I started to get to hear their stories, hey, what's your name? And we try to like avoid that, because when you put a name to something, it's hard to, to throw it to the side. So I think really the homeless population, and I'm going on a little bit longer, but I'm really passionate about this, is that the homeless population sort of is it represents a part of ourselves on a psychological level that we're afraid to look at, a part that we want to throw away, a part that maybe is homeless, a part of that's in pain, that's angry, that's sad, that we don't want to associate with. And so it's right there in our face. And so sometimes that pain's right there. We want to look away. We want to avoid it. And rather we can embrace it with some love. I really find that on a very deeper personal level, shifts in your life will start taking place for the better.
Okay, that is profound. I've never heard it talked about that way, that the reason that we look away is because we don't want to look at that because it's just too painful for ourselves. We see something in someone who's homeless and it reminds us that we are also broken and we also are a few steps away. Most people in the country are a few bad either decisions or bad circumstances away from having their home, their car, their job, their families taken away from them. And so perhaps, as you suggest, it's just easier to not think about that and to pretend that we're more secure than we are. So we don't want to see people who have tons of insecurity. Every day is about insecurity of food and shelter and relationship. And I love what you said about story, ask the story or introduce yourself and get to know the person as a person and not as a thing or part of a problem.
Yeah, flip the script. Flip the script on what you think that narrative is for that person, and you'll be quite surprised by what will find. It will touch your heart, in very deep, profound ways.
So what about your past makes you so passionate about this population?
Well, I mentioned on it just briefly, but I've had my own bouts with addiction and mental health and depression, having a journey of being, I think anybody above 12 is part of the human experience. So whether we want to admit it or not, and I do feel there's a shift in the world where the stereotypical or the what's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, just like fears around speaking about one's inner world is getting less and less, and there's more ability to now speak about mental health and to speak about one's inner world, which is wonderful because as I was going to say, as being a man, there's a high rate of suicides that take place amongst men, especially because there is a societal idea of like keeping those emotions in and not sharing that, and every community has their own societal norms, what is to be a man or a woman and how to hold that experience of being a human. So to answer your question directly is that, yeah, I've had a lot of ups and downs in my own life and finding unhealthy ways to mitigate that pain or to numb out, to survive. And so there were moments where I really saw, you know, in one of my darker moments where how I could really make a choice and just become homeless and really cut out the people who were sharing love with me, but I couldn't accept that love on a deep level, and I didn't think good enough or worthy enough just through my own actions. And so once I started taking actions to get healthier and support myself and get the help that I needed, and coming through that dark tunnel and into the light, the only next right action was to go ahead and help those, or to say, hey, this is my story. You know, I can't save you per se, but this sort of worked for me and this helped. And even just looking someone in the eye and saying, hey, they're not alone. And as I think was it, I forgot, one TEDx speaker said, like, it's why not, don't ask why the addiction, but why the pain. And so there's so through my own experience of going through all these different bouts of mental health crises and feeling very deeply alone in the world, I wanted to service and help those who are going through that in their own personal ways, but let them know that there's hope and that there's a way through, and life does get better.
And they're not alone. They're seen,
Absolutely.
which
Yes.
is so
Absolutely.
important.
Yes.
And you've found a following, a very large following on social media for the work that you're doing, and you're prolific on YouTube and different social media platforms. We'll share links to all of those on our website as well. Why do you think what you do and your message has resonated with so many people?
You know, I believe because there's an authenticity that is there, and a truth that I try to live by. Though, you know, I'm human and not perfect, it's something that it's one of my values. And in a world that is filled with a lot of smoke and mirrors, and a lot of things that are, you know, put on pedestals, and this is the way it should be, or this will bring you happiness, long and behold, doesn't bring that. People, I know for myself included, as I, you know, as I grow older over the years, there's a lot of like what to believe and what's real and what's truth. And at the ultimate level, I believe people want safety, and people want to feel safe in this wild, crazy world that we live in. And so what I try to bring through my video content and through my messaging is a certain level of honesty and safety. And it may come through, you know, social experiments that just bring out the humanity in people or the kindness in people, and maybe through short stories, and maybe through different projects to peel back those layers of saying, hey, I see you, man. Like, hey, we're doing this life together. And yeah, we don't have it all figured out. And yeah, it's gonna be messy. But again, you're not alone. And so that you're not alone message and safety message comes through in different filters. And one filter is through Super Soul Party experiencing and, you know, servicing those who are experiencing homelessness. One filter is through, you know, a kid show, which is, you know, servicing young, you know, 3 to 6 year olds. Another service, I got certified in breath work and host men's retreats, and that's servicing certain people through a more intimate, in-person, deeper level. So I'm just trying to hit, you know, tackle this feeling, this loneliness epidemic that's taking place in this world, and this like unworthiness epidemic that a lot of people feel. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I'm not beautiful enough. Enough. And say, hey, look you in the eye and say you are enough. Um, and let's do this. You're not alone.
And we're, 2024, we're in an election year, more divisive, perhaps, wars. There's turn on any channel on the television and it's hard to look at. It's painful. And so many people feel isolated, and oftentimes it feels like people are going to social media to find people who are really like them, to kind of hate on the people who are against them or who are not like them. And your message, and there are other folks doing similar things to what you're doing, which is, it's almost like a really traditional throwback to, we made it too hard, folks. Let's bring it back and let's make it easy, and let's see people and let's talk to people and let's feed people and let's make sure they know that I'm just as broken as they are and we're doing this together and I want to help.